I'm very excited to geek out on OCR and show you guys what we do with it in Salesforce and how it can help you with your business. At first, I'm going to give you a little bit of intro and then our agenda, and then we'll dive right into it. I do want to clarify what OCR is. It stands for Optical Character Recognition. It is the magic of the data entry. I started my career very early in 15 years ago as an enrollment specialist. I was processing enrollment forms for a nonprofit, and each enrollment form was about 10 to 15 pages of handwritten application. And 10 years ago, I thought to myself, wow, what would be easier way to do things? And fast forward now, we have technology that can do the data entry for us and eliminate all the paper processes. So I'm very excited to talk about it. It's been personal passion of mine to see this advancement and hope that we can get to do things faster and more accurate. I spent my career doing a lot of cool things in pharma, nonprofits, and financial clouds. I hold multiple certifications, but today we're focusing on my very, very interesting topic here that has been on my mind for the past 10 years is OCR. We will talk about the problems that OCR solves, how we solve it with Salesforce here at Cyberspring. We will talk about key pharma and healthcare use cases. We'll see a little demo of the OCR in action with Amazon TextRec. And then I'm going to leave some time for questions and answer. So OCR today, actually, fun fact, USPS Postal Service started using OCR way earlier than anyone else to sort mail. So if you think there's a person standing there sorting for each state, it's not correct. There is a technology that does it. Self-driving cars, read the signs. When you deposit your mobile checks to your bank, the OCR reads the amount and your handwriting. So we have a quite a variety of use cases of OCR, but I do want to show you what we use in pharma and healthcare. And the first one, we need to start with the paper problem. We talk about industries that have a lot of paper, especially in the past, when we used to collect information in scanned documents, or we still have them in some notes in doctor's offices, for example. This doesn't apply to just the industry like healthcare. We also have financial services, insurance, even education too, that has been drowning in paper, which causes a lot of delays. We have a lot of errors, so manual data entry tasks usually take time, and that typically delays even clinical submissions or regulatory submissions, or even patient applications that you have to process within a day or two. And every time a human touches the data, I know from experience, there's a lot of room for error. When you're typing fast, you make transcription mistakes, you're missing fields, and sometimes you misread the handwriting. And then once you have these errors that slip into submissions or reports, we're looking at potential regulatory risks as well. So this goes beyond the compliance. There is a real business cost that comes with all the paper. It's basically wasted time. The operations slow down. And even if you use paper in clinical trials, they become very expensive to run. So this paper process directly impacts the revenue. Um, and if you're late processing something, somebody else gets the work, right? So if the application is not getting processed within a week and you apply multiple places, then the first one gets the client or the customer. So how does OCR fit in these businesses? So um, I have couple of slides here. So OCR fits in the process as its core of the technology. It basically reads from the scanned documents, images, or handwriting. So you take a form, think of like adverse event form or consent document, or maybe a lab report, and it would be a scanned PDF. And it takes the form, it structures it into pages, lines, and then reads from those templates. It doesn't work in a silo. OCR is magic only when it's combined with some other tools. For example, in our use case today, we'll talk about Salesforce integration and how it works with Salesforce to combine those workflows with the actual intake of the document. So this means that as soon as somebody uploads a document into Salesforce, maybe through even the portal or an email, we can take the data right from the document into Salesforce objects without human intervention. The data has to be structured, of course, but it means that you can start searching, reporting, you can start triggering workflows and do analytics, all from the content that previously used to be locked in the scanned document, like an image. What are the top use cases for OCR? Why should anyone care about? Well, first of all, OCR is not the magic that we all think about. It still is evolving and learning. And when you combine OCR with AI, it can start not only reading the text, but also putting the meaning into the text. So if OCR reads a review and it can tell you if the customer was positive or negative. But OCR is already actually making a difference in healthcare and life sciences operations. One of the coolest, I think personally coolest use cases is clinical trials. OCR can take data from the patient consent forms or case report forms. It eliminates manual data entry and puts it accurately into the database. For example, any lab reports with biomarkers or test results, we can feed them into the trial database on your EDC systems. We can also extract and flag protocols deviations from the sites. So we can automatically feed the scanned documents and start building workflows that alert people about deviations from the actual monitoring visits. We can also convert handwritten scanned documents. A lot of clinical trials use cases come with a really good benefit because we have trials from 90s and 2000s that are still in paper. So if you do OCR now, you can mine those records and kind of resubmit the data and rerun the trials again. So it saves you a lot of time on the clinical trials. For the adverse event reporting, we actually see the use case where the handwritten forms are very common, and OCR actually logs those directly into safety and compliance systems. We can integrate with all pharmacovigilance systems to not only reduce transcription errors, but also keep OCR at our fingertips to help us form those from the notes that we take. We also see in medical affairs, which is very dear to my heart, in the speaker program forms. So every time you have a conference or a congress and you have the attendance logs or sign-in sheets where the doctors put their first and last name or emails or feedback forms for the speaker programs, you can just scan it and upload, and it automatically generates all the leads for you or all the prospects. that you can follow up. In fact, if you have a smartphone today, OCR does the magic from any real estate picture that you can call from. So if you take a picture of the business card, you can click on the number and call today. That's OCR in action at your fingertips. So anything that's on the paper that goes directly into Salesforce or is transcribed into an actionable like phone number or a date or a checkbox, an actionable data type. For the field medical reps, we see a lot of pharmacy receipts and prior authorization forms. A lot of the times, folks enrich their call logs and put insights in Salesforce through OCR. So they would take a scan, maybe reimbursement forms or rebate submissions, maybe some other documents from the prescription, and then upload into Salesforce as an image, and then OCR takes care of all of it. I love pharma for being highly regulated industry. I think it's great that we have a little bit of oversight to keep us safe. And OCR helps with regulatory submissions. So it can archive your SOPs or CAPAs. It can give you training documents. It can actually take version numbers and dates and signatures from the scanned documents and manage the version control too. So there's a lot of magic into keeping you up to date with all the follow-ups and especially in MLR reviews. And the last but not least in the pharma and healthcare, what we see is a use case in billings and claims. Also actually credential and licensing. So there's a lot of digitalized provider credentials and certifications that we can auto validate expiration days or their education licenses and keep them accountable for those dates and renewals. But billing and claims also help us with digitizing explanation of the benefits, prescriptions, and insurance forms. A lot of paperwork that we deal with can be taken care of by OCR. So across the board, you can see use cases from the clinical to commercial side where OCR drives automation and accuracy. OCR in action. I'm going to start a little demo. It shouldn't take more than 5 minutes, but you can see how one of the clients is transforming their enrollment process with OCR. So my colleague Gabe will do the demo here, and we'll be back with more pointers.
Showcasing today is the integration between Salesforce and AWS and their OCR, or also known as Optical Character Recognition. We will be showcasing that feature and that functionality here on Salesforce. And the use case that we'll be covering today is if you have an enrollment form. This also works for any identification type documents such as driver's licenses, insurance information, etc. And you have any of these documents faxed or emailed into your Salesforce system, and OCR will read the document for you and actually map it to those fields, which takes away the need for manual entry. It reads handwriting really well, and it turns manual entry process into essentially just a review process of just reviewing and proofreading, which makes something like an enrollment process be a lot faster, and it cuts down your processing time of this documentation. So in this use case, we're going to mimic the use case of a medical enrollment form and what that looks like if we were to process an enrollment form. So as you can see here, we have an enrollment form that, let's say, came in through eFax or email that we have here, and it enters into a document queue, which I then picked up and is now a part of the received document object, which is a standard object within Salesforce that allows for this capability that we are about to share. As you can see here, we have our sample enrollment form attached here under files. So to get started, I'm going to hit this button, transform document, which is going to bring me to the enrollment form itself. And I will select the first part of the enrollment form, which is mostly patient information. And let's process our payment information for our patient, Donald Duck. So I will select this form so that we can begin processing it. And then here is where we will select which object should this information be mapped to, which since it is our patient, we're going to select the account object. From there, we will select new account. Now you have different document types that you can select. So this works well if you have any old enrollment forms or newer versions that are slightly different with different branding. OCR can actually read multiple mappings and multiple forms that are formatted differently or have different branding, and you can select them as different document types to help with reporting. We're going to select our patient record type and hit next. And as you can see here, OCR's highlighted all the different things that it has mapped. It has mapped Donald, the middle name, D, Duck, and this is all handwritten. This is actually my sloppy handwriting. So far it's reading it pretty good. Here's the date of birth, which matches, and now I'm just kind of going through and proofreading. Here is the last four of the social, of our fake social, that it read right off OCR. As you can see, it even selected the primary language for English. Uh, Preferred time to contact is morning. So it actually does add these things even to a pick list uh, for pick list values as well. Um, this also read my email, which is shown right here. It's read and translated perfectly to the correct field. Here's the primary phone number that it read and mapped it to the mobile. It's really spot on with that, as well as you can also see here is my address that it's mapping right to the person account mailing street address. And then it also, and I did this purposely because I just wanted to show this, it also is really cool about actually flagging anything that may have not gotten mapped for whatever reason. Um, so a lot of times, if you have multiples of the same field, OCR might tell you that it's just not sure of which field to map this to, but it makes it really easy to fix. You can hit this copy this field button, copies it, and then you actually just paste it right onto the field of your choosing. Makes it really, really intuitive in that regard. And as you can see, you know, really quick to now just have our information. Everything is set, and we're able to kind of just move on with our processing, which took a matter of 2 minutes to just kind of enter all of this patient information. You hit save and you have your record versus having to manually type out all this data.
Wonderful. And I am going to tell you some of the magic that happens behind what we saw in Gabe's demo is actually the confidence level that OCR has. Of course, it's not perfect. And when you look at the handwriting, OCR is not really bounces the data that it reads against the dictionary. It takes the curves and the lines of the letter and learns from the handwriting. So sometimes it misses some words and some languages. Like I know Arabic is one of those languages that is very cursive, and OCR is still trying to learn that from. I'm giving it maybe a year or two until it becomes perfect. So the magic behind that is Amazon Text Track. I would like to talk about some of the tools. There's other players in the market like Tesseract. There's AWS Textract is the one that we use for Salesforce. There's Google Vision AI. There's also Microsoft AI Studio. It actually an open source one. I think Git AI as well does it. So you can see the magic by just uploading the picture and checking out how a machine takes that image and transcribes it into structured text. So OCR actually reads the text and it learns from so-called bounding boxes. So it takes every word in each line, like you saw in the demo, and gives each word a confidence level. So what you saw on the demo as well as Gabe showed you how the OCR wasn't confident about the field because the name was the same. So a human intervention sometimes is needed. What we typically do in our implementations, we can either process the document automatically and then maybe flag some of those documents that are not meeting the confidence criteria or threshold for a human intervention, which also um, saves you time on any of the data entry. But let's dive into the solution, Amazon Extract. It's a very powerful tool. It uses machine learning to take the structured data from very complex documents, like you saw, scanned PDF, very complex handwritten forms. And mind you, we're dealing with doctor's handwriting. I can't read that sometimes too. But Textract is doing a great job to understand the text and the tables and transforming all of that into usable information. But what it's missing, obviously, is that data interpretation, which we'll talk in the future. So, what makes Amazon Textract powerful is that integration with Salesforce. It helps it works with the AWS Lambdas, so it takes OCR and takes all of the documents and Lambdas from AWS. Takes the execution from it. It uses REST API to insert the records in Salesforce, which means it's very friendly for HIPAA eligibility and PHI, because REST API encrypts the information at rest. So we can transform it safely. And AWS, the reason we use it is very secure and scalable, and you can process 100 to 10,000 documents, ensuring that it's optimal performance and also minimize delays as well. So you're not just extracting the data, you're actually turning the manual paper-based processes into like a real-time automated workflows that take all the data directly into your CRM and enhances your compliance systems or clinical trial databases. I know I'm pushing time here for a minute, but I do want to talk about the results that speak for themselves. We do see about 70% reduction in manual data entry time. It frees up your resources that do the data entry to take the teams and focus on the more strategic tasks or reallocate them to a different task, or at least take the 90% of the burden of the data entry out of their hands and they can review the low confidence OCR documents. We also see 50% reduction in compliance risk. So every time a human being makes a data error, it could be financial implications, regulatory penalties, or even delayed approvals. So this is very crucial in regulated environments like pharma and healthcare, where even a small error can lead to a hefty penalty. There's a lot of benefits in clinical trials and turnaround of the clinical documents where speed matters and data entry and review cycles and fast decision making that actually will accelerate you either time to market or a new therapy. And again, I can't stress enough how it helps to eliminate human errors and help with audit readiness and traceability. So we talked about the benefits, and right now I'm gonna open the Q&A session for some quick questions if we have any.
Thank you, Karina. So a few questions were submitted, so I say we begin with those. So we could start with the first one here. How accurate is OCR with handwritten documents?
Handwritten documents, I mentioned this, it depends on the quality. It's still learning. So a lot of the times, if the document is clear and and the nice handwriting and structured well, then the confidence is pretty high. Low confidence fields can be flagged for human reviews, but OCR these days recognizes structured data like tables and columns and checkboxes and signatures. So it's not just characters, it actually takes the data types. So to answer your question, the printed and very high quality documents, I'd say typically 98, 99% of accuracy, and then maybe handwritten, maybe 70.
Awesome. That's extremely impressive. Now, for the next question, we receive 100 faxes per day. How scalable is this OCR solution?
It's very scalable just because it's a cloud-based, and I can only speak for TaxTract, but it can process thousands of documents in parallel. So if you upload or onboarding hundreds of people, let's say on the clinical trials side, you'll get a performance without any degradation, for sure.
Awesome, awesome. And I know you touched on this a little bit with it translating Arab documents and it being more cursive, but one question we got here was, can OCR recognize non-English documents?
Yes, it's still learning. So if you get the enterprise grade OCR platform, they do have multiple languages, most common ones Spanish and French and German. Um, but the language could be either detected automatically or manually, but you would need a little bit of enterprise grade to boost that. So
What's one thing OCR can't read, but you wish it could?
I wish it could. Emotions. I think right now OCR can't really read, it can actually read maps too if you're a pirate. But emotions or interpret the fields. And I think what a good question for what's next for OCR is that intelligence of the document enhanced with AI. Once the OCR reads it, we need to start transcribing the feeling behind it. So let's say if somebody wrote urgent on the paper, OCR will put it as urgent, but it's not going to mark it as urgent. So I think in the future we'll see that it's going to either start transcribing emotions like positive, negative feedbacks and whatnot in the future.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, we'll definitely be keeping tabs on that then. Now, another question we have here is, could OCR replace administrative assistants?
Hmm. Could it replace administrative assistants? I don't think it can replace, but I think it will add to administrative assistance because imagine the OCR as being an assistant who never gets tired of reading the forms and that never makes a typo. So you, as an assistant, you would want to use it. So definitely, I don't think it will replace, but it will speed up a lot of processes because it can work 24/7.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I'm totally in agreement with that. Now, we actually just received two more questions, so we'll wrap up with these two. For the first one, could OCR detect fraud or manipulation in scanned documents?
Oh, that's a good one. Manipulation of a scanned document. I have seen OCR catching like font mismatches, like whiteout fields, um, like inconsistent handwriting or even like different ink being used. So yes, it definitely will potentially help flag an altered document? That's a really good question. I know that somebody is working right now in OCR that can actually read your emotion from the handwriting intensity on the page. As I don't know how accurate is that because I'm a heavy handwriter, but a lot of the times we can take a lot of information about emotions and thinking from handwriting. So,
Wow. I didn't know most of that. That's incredible, actually. Wow. Good to know. Thank you so much for answering all those questions, Karina. I know we're running short on time, so I'll let you wrap it up from here.
yeah, thank you very much for asking all of those. If you have any more, feel free to email or reach out to us. We do a lot of OCR implementations with Amazon Textract and Salesforce. You guys can reach out to Cybersprint to learn more about our solutions, maybe get a demo again, or we would be happy to do an assessment of your document flows and see where we can bring the magic to your process and save you time and money. So please reach out and have a great one.